High River residents were all fired up at a contentious town hall meeting. The source of their discontent? The RCMP's action during last June's flood evacuation. The Mounties' seizure of weapons, damage done to residents' homes, and the subsequent lack of compensation. People are demanding answers, and more importantly, they're demanding accountability. But most importantly, they want assurances their civil liberties will never be jeopardized again. Well, joining me live in Calgary is one of High River's residents. Oh, and she also happens to be the leader of the Wildrose party, Danielle Smith. Danielle, thanks for taking time to speak with us today.
You bet. Thank you.
Hey, first and foremost, there's a couple things we should be talking about. And right off the bat, I guess we have to reference a personal remark that was made to you from a MLA. What did you make of that, and what did you make of the response to the, controversy coming from the remarks?
Oh, you're saying when the Minister of Municipal Affairs dropped the F-bomb on me for holding my town hall last night?
Bluntly,
is that what
yes,
we're getting at?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. I said I think Doug Griffiths needs to get a vacation. He's obviously very stressed out and he's acting inappropriately. And I don't think he should be surprised. I've been holding town halls now ever since this flood crisis began to be able to fill some of the information gaps. I also told the Associate Minister, Rick Fraser, 2 weeks ago I was holding this town hall meeting. And I said, I would actually really like for some answers by the time I have the meeting so I can tell people what the path is to get compensation for all the damage to their homes. So for him to act like it comes out of the blue, I have to wonder who's really playing politics here. These folks need answers, and more importantly, they need their property back, and they also need to be fully compensated for their losses. And right now, they're not getting any of those things.
Well, that's exactly why I wanted to start with that. There's two factors here we should look at, the stress factor and also the continual obfuscation that's going around with this High River situation. Yep. It seems like the government doesn't want to approach this and deal with this properly. We got two problems here for the people of High River. One, their property was taken without their knowledge. And two, they're not being compensated for the damage. Is the government trying to put this all under the rug and throw, blockades in the way of the real situation here?
I think that and you identified the problems perfectly. We have a situation in High River that I think is relevant to the rest of the country when they go through emergency response. In a lot of small towns across the country, the RCMP are the provincial police force. So they're the ones who come in to do law enforcement. What happened in High River is they operated outside the chain of command. They didn't recognize the authority of the EOC. They operated without civil oversight. We have a letter that was sent, and I released it yesterday, where they acknowledge that they entered into homes and they seized private property on the orders of no elected official, nor any of the people who worked for those elected officials. So that I think is something that we need to really consider is how did the RCMP make these decisions? And now that they've made them, who's accountable for it? Because what we're seeing now is on the one hand, they say we don't recognize the civil oversight, but now when it comes time to pay the bills, and they're $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 bills for the doors that they smashed in some cases right off the hinges. Now they're saying, we don't know if we should be the ones to pay for it. That's the problem that we're facing in High River right now, and it's relevant to any community who might go through this in the future.
The RCMP were at this town hall that you held the other night, Danielle. Were they there to give answers or to make excuses?
I think the staff sergeant who was there, and he's brand new, he came in after the bulk of the crisis was over. He just became appointed on July 26th, and he is wanting to look forward, but you can't look forward until you correct the mistakes of the past. One of the things I would say is that he said that he has been calling every single day to try to find the answers to who are going to pay these bills, even up to 2 hours before my meeting last night, and he still couldn't get an answer. So you're looking at a situation where 1,900 homes had their doors smashed in or their windows smashed in or their garage door broken into. Once again, splintering locks, splintering door frames, causing massive inconvenience for people. Some people, it took 3 to 4 weeks to be able to repair their doors. And no one is wanting to own up to this. No one is wanting to take responsibility for it. No one's wanting to pay the bills. That's what I'm trying to get to the bottom of it. Just pay the bills so that people can move on with their lives. Because the more that they sit and they wait with those bills lining up on their credit cards, and the fewer answers they get, they're just getting more frustrated and angry.
Danielle, you're not just a politician looking at a situation, dealing with constituents. You're talking about friends and neighbors of your town in High River there. What's the feeling like for these people that they've been violated and now they have to worry about where's the money going to come from to pay for all this? What are they feeling?
There's a couple of things. There were lots of people shouting last night that they felt like they were in a police state. They felt like they were being treated like criminals. One woman near the end, very tearful, she said that next time this happens, she expects that people won't leave town, because if they're treated this way, where they're locked out of town, they have no information, people start busting down their doors, they take their personal belongings, and then they don't own up for it or make amends for it after the fact. She's worried that next time this happens in some community, people won't leave, and then you're going to end up with many, many more casualties. And we want to all avoid that. We want to restore confidence in the authorities, but the best way to do that is come clean on who made the decision and why. Hold that person to account, and then make amends on the property side by returning all of the personal belongings and by fixing the doors, paying compensation so we can move on. So far, that's not happening.
Danielle, we're actually going to play some clips from that town hall meeting, and we'll see the emotional content that was evident there. But I want to get back to something you mentioned earlier, and for me, it's about accountability and the lack thereof. Who's going to hold the RCMP accountable here? How can this happen and someone not be taken to task for it?
It's a couple things. It's either the Public Complaints Commission, and I gather they're in the middle of doing an investigation to determine what went right, what went wrong. But it's also the Solicitor General of our own province. Let's remember that provinces contract the RCMP to do police work on their behalf. So this falls firmly in the lap of our Justice Minister and our provincial government. Because if you've got a police force that doesn't recognize the civil authority, then you've got a problem with your contract and you've got a problem with the chain of command. And that has to be resolved not only for this crisis, but also for future policing efforts. We need to know that the RCMP are going to listen to the bosses, and the bosses are the civil authority that pay their bills. In this case, it's the province, and I'm afraid that broke down completely during the High River crisis.
Danielle, I don't want to take up too much more of your time, but I think you're touching on a greater issue here that we're seeing replicated, not just in High River, but across our country, and it's that police forces in Canada are getting away from what they're supposed to do, to serve and protect. The High River case is a prime example of that. What do people feel like has been done to them because of this situation perpetrated by the RCMP?
I have to say people are feeling like they can't trust the authorities anymore. And I know that Staff Sergeant, that hurt him to the core because he comes from an RCMP family and he wears it. And I think that there are a lot of people who wish that they could support the actions of the RCMP, and in this case they know that they stepped over the line. One more thing I would say is that it came out last evening when they were talking about the homes that were entered to seize firearms. It appears as though they knew how many guns were in each home, which is a bigger problem for the federal government. Because if they know how many guns are in each home and they know what those guns are when they were looking for them, it means that the RCMP is still using the long gun registry. And quite frankly, that long gun registry was supposed to be dismantled. So that's another avenue that has to be looked into, because we cannot have our RCMP targeting homes that have firearms in them, using data that they shouldn't be rightfully using, and then having no accountability for that after the fact. And I can tell you, Dennis Young from the National Firearms Association was there last night. He was collecting stories. He had a lawyer there. I suspect you will hear more about this from the NFA.
Danielle, it's a story that obviously has many levels. It's a story we're not going to leave alone either. Thanks for taking time to speak with me today.
Yeah, you bet. Appreciate it.
All right, that was Danielle Smith, the leader of the Wildrose Party. She joined us live from our Calgary studios.